Okay. It's going to be live streaming now. It might echo in the first second until I mute it, and then we're all good to go. Okay, yes. So just a second. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for everybody that's coming in. I really appreciate everybody's time. My name is Shamim, and I'm one of the founders and vice president of Bright Future Dentists. And joined with me today is Dursa, Hanieh, and Hanine, who are all students at University of Toronto's Faculty of Dentistry. I'm super appreciative of their time coming in and talking with us today. We want to help you guys out really to maximize your interview process to dental school and ultimately complete your pre-dental journey. We want everybody to get accepted and truly just hear out the best advice and strategies from everyone here today. And if you have any questions, of course, we're going to be having our Q&A at the end. Hopefully you can get a lot of insight into what they will be talking about today. Definitely you can drop in your questions in the Zoom chat throughout the webinar, but we will be reserving all questions to be answered towards the end. If anybody has any other further questions about how the webinar is going to be going, you can also just drop it in the chat and then I'll also answer them. So to kind of go over our agenda for today, I wanted to talk about who our team is, who Bright Future Dentists is, and what we stand for. We're going to be talking about the backgrounds of our speakers, where they come from in terms of their undergraduate journey, how they got here today, and ultimately why dentistry. And of course, we're going to be answering a lot of frequently asked questions throughout their presentations and a Q&A towards the end. So who is Bright Future Dentists? Bright Future Dentists is a student-led pre-dental organization, and we're dedicated to helping all students on your path to dentistry. Through a lot of guest speakers, networking events, in person, whether online or virtual, we kind of help the community with different services. We aim to equip students with the knowledge and insight into the field of dentistry and create a space for pre-dental students to form friendships and network with each other. Our team ultimately wants you to develop the best leadership skills so you can be leaders in your community. And through anything like course selection issues, not knowing where to go with your degree or how to get involved, we're going to be your information hub to help you do so. So just to give a quick disclaimer, I'm super appreciative of our speakers here today. They're going to be giving a lot of great information, and hopefully through the Q&A, you will have a lot of your questions answered. But of course, with all interviews, there's no right way necessarily to go about it. There may be kind of great advice that is used through a lot of dental schools and is the best practice of how to ultimately get your way in. But this is personal advice and experience from trusted individuals. Ultimately, do your own research when it comes to your own school. Every dental school is different. Every process is going to look different. So make sure you know which direction you're headed at. And if you have any other further questions, you can always drop them below. So I'm going to pass over the stage. I really appreciate everybody's time to spend here today and listen. And of course, this meeting is going to be recorded for everybody to be able to watch afterwards. If there's anything that you feel like you missed, don't worry about it. I'll also leave in the chat all of their Instagram handles so you can reach out to the speakers afterwards if you wish. And yeah, that's kind of it for me. So I'm going to pass over now. First, I'm going to have Hanine introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. If you guys are preparing for your own interviews, then congratulations on your interview. It's already so far into the process. I remember being in your position not too long ago, and you should be very proud of yourselves. I am from the University of Toronto, of course. I'm in my first year. A little bit about myself. Before dental school, I completed a master's at McMaster University in global health. I did that the year before dental school. So I applied twice to dental school, the year of my master's and the year after. So I took a little bit of time off after my master's to travel. So I have no regrets. It was a lot of fun. And I actually think it helped me during my interview as well. And before my master's, I was doing an undergrad at the University of Toronto in life sciences. I don't recommend it if that's your question, but if your goal is dental school, then we can talk about that another time. But in general, I'm really happy to be here, so I'm excited to give some advice.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Dursa now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dursa. Again, like Hanine mentioned, congratulations if you've gotten an interview, and if you haven't, still congratulations. This process is very long. It's a very lengthy process, and so I know it's definitely not easy. You should be very proud of yourself. I'm very excited to be here and to give some of my own experiences. So my name is Dursa. I'm also a first-year dental student at U of T. I did my undergrad at Western, and I did it in medical sciences. I did it specifically in neuro. I wrote both the American and the Canadian DAT, and I wrote them in my summers, mainly between the summer of second and third year. I applied to both American and Canadian schools. So I basically wrote my DAT 3 times, and I got in right after my undergrad. What else? So I applied to American schools, as I mentioned. I did a lot of American school interviews, and yeah, that's pretty much it about me. If there's any more specific questions that come up, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But yeah, I'm excited to give some advice as well.
Thank you so much. That's a lot. You did both the American and the Canadian.
I know. I don't know how I'm here right now.
Okay, it's the dedication. Okay. Next, I'm going to pass the stage over to Hanieh.
Hi, guys. I'm Hanieh. I am in third year at U of T. Again, congratulations to those of you who are preparing for your interviews. I know if you're doing your interviews at U of T, your interview is in, I think, 2 weeks. So I'll see some of you there probably. I will be helping out, so I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, I graduated in 2019 from McMaster. I did my bachelor's in kinesiology. When I graduated, I took a gap year. I literally just worked customer service. I did my DAT that same year, so November 2019, and I applied blindly without knowing my DAT scores that same year. And I'm very grateful to be here right now. I applied to McGill, Western, and U of T. I got interviews at Western and U of T, and I only went to my interview here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to answering your questions, giving some advice as much as I can, and hearing what everybody else has to say as well. Should be fun.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys. So I'm going to have Hanine start us off here today. Each of our speakers are going to be giving their best advices for interview prep, and they will be pretty much building up on each other's advice. So at the very end of today's webinar, hopefully you have a really great idea as to everything that you've heard today and their best strategies for it. And I'm just going to let Hanine take over for me.
Awesome. Okay, let's just get right into it, I guess. I'm going to give you pretty much the advice that I was given and almost exactly what I did when I was preparing for my dental school interview. I was preparing for my U of T interview and Western. I honestly didn't think I was going to get into U of T, so I was practicing with students from Western University. They were two of my closest friends, and honestly, it made no difference because it's all interviews are essentially the same. So regardless, you just need somebody who's going to give you feedback or good feedback. My best advice, or what I think is the key to doing well on your interview, is going to be practice. You're going to want to practice as many questions as possible, but obviously there's literally thousands of questions that are, something that is potentially going to be asked, and most likely the question that U of T gives you, because they make new questions every year, is going to be a question you've never seen before. So you're going to have to be prepared to answer any type of question, which means that when you're practicing, you're going to need some type of strategy to answer anything that comes your way. The way that I did it was I used the Canada roles as kind of something to organize all the different questions I could potentially get, and also organize all of my different experiences. So first of all, we have to know what type of questions are possible. there's maybe at least 5 different types of questions. For example, there's situational questions you could get, and that's something like, what would you do in this scenario? There's behavioral questions, which is more like, tell me a time when XYZ. And that's when you're going to have to know your CV inside out. And then there's also the current event questions. So it could be about anything that's going on in the world. COVID questions were really popular at one point. They could still be popular, but it could be anything that happens, just to see how knowledgeable you are about any type of topic, and how you can answer a question about a topic you don't know anything about. That's also valuable information. Another type of question that you could get could be related to dentistry. So it could be related to work-life balance in dentistry. It could be related to policies in dentistry to kind of improve dentistry as a whole. It could be what you know about dentistry. It could really be anything related to dentistry. So it's important to know a little bit about the field as well, and the university you're applying to. You should, and there's also like those really random questions that you have no idea why they're asking you, like, where do you want to travel? Not your business, but you're going to have to know how to answer a question like that, you know, because all they're trying to see is your personality. And that's why when we approach like an interview, we need to know what type of question is being asked, because it could be a question that's, you know, like an ethical dilemma, and that does naturally take a more serious tone. But if it's a question where you can kind of tell, because it's a random question, that it's more about trying to see your personality, like, you know, where do you want to travel? You don't want to be tense, you know, you want to really let loose and let your personality shine through. Otherwise, it's gonna be clear that you're super nervous, and it's normal to be nervous, but they do want to see confidence in you as well. And the more you practice these, and the more you can anticipate these questions, the more confident your answers will come out. So the first way that you can organize all of your thoughts, your experiences, and the types of questions is, as I mentioned, the CAD-MED roles, which are professionalism, communicator, collaborator, leader, scholar, and health advocate. I can write them in the chat if it's easier, but those are the CAD-MED roles. But that's one way. But a second way that you can do it, and this is actually the way that I did use, so I made a table using these in one column, are some specific attributes. And these attributes were, again, communication, conscientiousness, integrity, judgment and analysis, self-control, sensitivity to others, tact and diplomacy. So I'll write those in the chat, but pretty much I had all of those attributes on one column. And then the next column was what type of question would go into, could ask about this type of attribute. And the next column would be an experience from my CV that shows this attribute. For example, for integrity, I would want to know exactly what the definition of integrity is, because they could not use the word integrity. They could use a synonym for it, or some type of, it could be a situational question where what they're describing is to kind of trying to see if you can display integrity, but it won't actually use a term. So you have to be able to pick that out. So that's what I would put in the table so that I can identify it very easily. I really try to make it as dumbed down as possible for myself, so that I don't have to be, jumping hoops when I'm, trying to think of a question on the spot. You know what I mean? And then for my examples, I try to give an example from my work life, my school life, and then my personal life, because I would kind of essentially on interview day pick my favorite example or what I think was best. And I would usually highlight the experiences that I really want to make sure the interviewer knows about me. For U of T, I'm pretty sure it's the same this year. The interviewers know nothing about you. So it's your role, it's your job to essentially sell yourself. For example, I really wanted my interviewers to know that I worked as a rehab therapist at one point. I thought there's a lot of qualities that I could kind of draw from that I could explain. And lo and behold, when I did kind of just pop it, I'm not gonna I didn't even give too much details. I just said when I was working as a rehab therapist. Then the follow-up question, because they give you follow-up questions, was why did you transition from, why did you transition from rehab therapy to dentistry? And that essentially, the question isn't really why not rehab therapy. The question is why dentistry. So you have to really be able to see what are they trying to ask you and what benefit is this question to me, pretty much. So that was one thing that I wanted them to know. Another thing that I really wanted them to know, for example, was that I did a master's, and then I threw that in somewhere. I just want you to be cautious, because anything you throw in, you should be prepared to really back it up. You should know every detail about it. For example, I have some colleagues that kind of casually mentioned that they did research, and then the rest of their interview was about their research. And if that happened to me, I wouldn't be here, so you have to be really careful. You know what I mean? So that's the second way. So we talked about the CAN-MEDS, then we talked about these really key attributes, because these are all things that dentists need to see, or dentists need to embody, essentially. I actually recommend using both. If you have the time, and if you're preparing from now, you probably do have the time, you should probably do all of them, just so that you're familiar with looking at your own experiences from a different lens. Because again, you may get a question that you're not familiar with, and you're going to have to pretty much take experiences that you already have practiced and make it adapt to whatever the question is, because it's really difficult to think about experiences on the spot. So that's not something you want to do on the spot. You should have all of your experiences pretty much figured out ahead of time. And then the last thing that I want to bring up is how your questions should actually sound, or because I know that a lot of people go through the STAR method, and that's an excellent strategy. But one way to really, one step further when you're answering questions is you want them to know what's in your head and what's in your heart. Like, you want them to know your approach to this world, your mindset in this world, how you would deal with any type of situation, essentially. For example, you're going to get a lot of questions or you could get a question related to ethics. It could come up in the form of professionalism. It could come up in the form of your values, or like a time that your values were challenged, a time somebody cheated, what did you do? A time when somebody is about to lose their job, you're the only person, XYZ, something like that. So in that case, I lost my track of thought, but I think I was talking about, does anybody know what I was talking about? So if this happens on an interview, it's okay. Just calm down. It's totally fine. The interviews usually are really, really nice, but that's why you should practice beforehand so it doesn't happen. But does anybody remember what I was saying? It's fine.
I'll jump in. You were kind of saying, like, if you're kind of talking about like your different experience and stuff like XYZ related to ethics, then how would you like continue that with what they were asking you? That's kind of what I was recalling.
Well, dental school gave me amnesia, so I still don't know what it's about, but it's okay. We'll get back to it another time. Another thing, I'll mention it later when it comes back. But in general, oh yes, I do remember now. Ooh, okay. So I was talking about how you want your mindset and approach to this world to come through in your answers. So for example, if you're getting a question about ethics, there's going to be a lot of questions that sound the same, but are looking for the same thing. So you could obviously give them your example of the time that you did the right thing, give them the time that you were able to identify an ethical dilemma, and you were still the bigger person. But the step further that really sets you apart from other applicants is that you're able to show them that regardless of the negatives that happen in a situation, you're still able to see a positive light. For example, you're able to say that, this is how I live my life on a regular basis. Actually, this is actually something I did. So this is where you bring in an example from your life, and you say, this is, when I had a time very similar to this, where I was experiencing an ethical dilemma, and this is what I did. And the reason I did it is because I like to live my life with these values. And you want to mention that value by name so that it's considered a buzzword, and then you want to have the experience to back it up, for example. And those two together is going to be a really strong answer. And then, of course, when you're practicing, the biggest reason why you want somebody to be judging you and giving you feedback is because you're going to be you're going to have a lot of filler words, and just the way you present it is probably not going to be 100%. the way that you're going to be during an interview. So a good way to kind of mitigate this, especially when you don't have enough time with other people, is to record yourself. And that way you can identify every time you say every time you say like, every time you say or every time you say something that you shouldn't. And another great thing that somebody else can judge you on is when you say anything that's related to a red flag. Red flags would be something like showing negative emotions, which are natural emotions, but you never want to come off like this is a regular part of your practice. For example, if you get a question that is related to what would you do if somebody's very, very angry at you, and your response eventually is like, oh, I'm going to call the police on them. There is a million things that you can do before you reach anything like that. You know what I mean? And you want to be able to show that you can think on your feet and that you can have creative solutions, because at the end of the day, dentistry is a customer service job just as much as it is a healthcare job or a job where you're doing surgeries all day. You do need to know how to work with people. That's what I'm going to leave you guys off with. And then hopefully somebody has something to jump in or can jump in.
Yeah, I didn't mean to switch it over. I pressed it by accident. But if anybody wants to add in anything right now, I think we're good. That was honestly great advice, Hanine. I really agree with the fact that you were saying, like, don't show the negative emotions and everything like that. Especially what I've noticed people like kind of don't realize is if you talk about even leaving any type of work experience or extracurricular experience in any sort of negative light, like it could be seen as like a red flag from that person, whether it's like you're moving on to a better experience for yourself. Okay, Dursa, I'm gonna let you take the stage.
Okay, so what I really wanted to talk about and something that really helped me during my interview process, and I did, I think, around like 15 interviews because I also applied to the American schools, but something that really helped me and kind of helped my mindset is that make it all about you, because this interview is a time for you to shine. You've gone your DAT, you've done your Casper, you've done your personal statement. Now it's all about you, and they want to know who you are, what kind of person you are, where you come from, what your background is. So what I think is really important when it comes to interviews is to show yourself and to relate everything back to you. How does whatever quality you're talking about relate to you? How does whatever experience relate to you? So for example, what I did often when I was doing my interviews was that around like a week in advance, I would go onto the school website, and I kind of had like a 3-stage approach. So I would look for 3 specific qualities of the school. Now, hopefully you already know like great things about the schools that you applied to, but I would kind of go more in detail, and I would look at certain things that really, really stood out to me. So for me, what was really important was, for example, curriculum. So how is their curriculum different from the other schools? Outreach is really, really important to me because, I've all throughout my undergrad, I did a lot of volunteer work and, extracurriculars. So I wanted to know how they kind of set themselves apart and what they did in their community. Did they have a big presence in their community? What was their attitude about outreach? And for example, the third one was diversity. And, we're in a time now where diversity is really important. So I wanted to know where they kind of regarded that when it came to their curriculum and their education. So I didn't just go on the website and go like, yeah, I like this school because of this, this, and this. But why are these 3 things, for example, important to me? Why is diversity important to me? For example, I'd be like, I'm, come from a family of immigrants. So diversity is important to me because it's what I grew up in. It's the kind of people that I've communicated with on a daily basis. So it shows more of your character, but at the same time, you're kind of answering the question they may ask. So for example, why did you choose our school? Well, I chose this school because of these 3 reasons, but here are why these 3 reasons are important to me. So you're kind of hitting 2 birds with 1 stone by answering the question and also showing more about yourself and the kind of person that you are and the kind of, the qualities and the values that are important to you and why these certain things are going to make you a better healthcare professional in the future. So I researched the school really deeply. Now, you don't necessarily have to go on the website to like find things that, are important, but, talking to other students, maybe by talking to other students, you'll see things that, or you'll hear things about the school, like positive things about the school that they may not, have emphasized. And that really impresses the school because it shows that you took initiative and time to go and speak to the students and do your own research and, find really niche things that are important to you. So I think that's one of the biggest advice that I did, is to know the school, because most of the time they definitely do ask, why do you want to come to our dental school? And at the same time, it kind of showcases why you would be a good fit for the dental school, because you've done your research and you know what the school stands for and how it aligns with your character. Again, connecting things back to your character is really, really important. So, for example, one of the most common interview questions, tell me about yourself. So this is actually a really, really hard question, because you may think it's really easy to tell, in like 2 minutes to talk about yourself, but it's actually really hard, because you're trying to showcase as much of your own personality as possible within those 2 minutes, and you're trying to fit in as many qualities and good adjectives and positive experiences in those 2 minutes. But what I think is really important, and a good way to approach this question, is to pinpoint certain things about your life or your quality or milestones in your life or experiences that you've had, that which are important to you and that really have made you the person that you are today. So like I mentioned, my background and the kind of community that I grew up in was really, really important. And I kind of touched upon how this community was something that like made me the person that I am today. And I didn't see a lot of healthcare professionals who perhaps like looked like me within my community. So in that particular part, I talked about, the qualities that are important to me, like who I am, what I stand for, where I come from. So you can I guess what I'm trying to say is, within certain points that you're stating, try to hit multiple things at one point. So talk about yourself, but also talk about how it relates to the school and the qualities that are showcased in a particular experience. So kind of put it all together, and in this way you're able to hit multiple points within a certain amount of time, because you don't want to ramble on for 5 minutes and then you think about it and you're like, I didn't even answer the question and I don't even know what I talked about. So I think making the interviews about you is what's really, really important. Connecting things back to you, back to your own qualities, back to your own experiences, making sure that you use certain experiences that you've had and taking and extracting the qualities and the values and particular, for example, responsibility or initiative or dedication. Don't just say that you have these things, show why and how you have these things. So I think those are the two most important things. Again, try to be as much of yourself as possible. I know it's very easy to say that, and then you're in front of the camera and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know who I am anymore. But really, they're not there to hurt you. They're not there to get you. They're not there to trick you. They really just want to know what kind of person you are. And, a lot of the times you're going to be like, wow, I was stressed out for this. Everyone's so nice. Everyone's, they're cracking jokes. We're talking about the newest episode of whatever. So they're all really, really nice. Be yourself as much as possible. Don't try to memorize any answers. Obviously have it practiced, but don't sit there and read it off like a robot. Show them that you are someone who's very flexible and adaptable, and that you can think on your feet, but at the same time you've done your research and you know exactly what you're talking about, and that kind of builds on Hanine's point of having those experiences, so that when they ask you a question, you're ready to go. And how I practice for interviews in terms of logistics, I didn't really practice in a group. I'm more of a person, I know that works for some people, but for me, that's not really something that I thought would work for me. So I just recorded myself on my computer. I like went on that photo booth, and I'd have like, if you look at it, I have like 50 videos of me saying the same thing, because I just wanted to make sure that I have it down at least once before I go into the interview. And I had a little notebook where I would just jot down notes, jot down points, certain things that I wanted to bring up. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Make sure to relate things back to you, to showcase you, your quality, your character, and relate that to how these are going to make you a good dentist. Yeah.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Dursa. Did anybody want to add anything to what Dursa was saying just at this point?
I just want to agree with her about pretty much just leave everything on the table because they know nothing about you. And for U of T specifically, they only ask you 3 questions. So how you want to get as much as you can in that little time. My interview, they gave us 30 minutes, but it only lasted 10 minutes. So you can actually say a lot in that time.
Do they tell you like you have specifically like this amount of time to answer whatever question, or not necessarily?
No, they just gave us a lot of 30 minutes, and that was too much. So now they reduced it to 20 minutes. So.
I see. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Hanieh, I'm gonna let you take the stage now.
Thank you. I think my experience was a little bit more like a little bit different because in my year it was an MMI. It's not an MMI right anymore. It's a panel. Yeah, so we had like 3 scenarios. You have 2 minutes to think about it, then you have to talk for 7 minutes about each scenario. But if it's not like that anymore, then the same principles apply whether you're doing an MMI or something else. There's kind of 4 things that I listed that I kind of want to talk about. They mostly all build on what my friend said, but yeah, these are things that I thought were super helpful when I was like preparing for this. First things first, just like Dursa said, the question like tell me about yourself or why dentistry. You need to have the answers to these like down. You need to know these questions, know the answers to them well, because using the answers to these, you can also like use the answer to this to answer like other questions as well. So write a paragraph for yourself. I'm not going to say like memorize the paragraph, but you should have it very well known. Why dentistry? Like, and they might ask you that. Sometimes like in my interview, the question wasn't even related to dentistry. It was some random question, like a scenario question. And then we ran out of things to talk about. So he said, all right, why are you here? Why are you choosing dental school? And so I'm like this, I wasn't even prepared for this. I don't even have time. So, but I had to know why, because it's the most basic question. Like, why are you here? So really think to yourself, like bring examples from your past. And it doesn't even have to be related to dentistry. I love knitting, and I think it's so wonderful. I think I love working with my hands, and I loved healthcare, and I put them together, and voila, like dentistry. But like stuff like that, you can just use your past experiences. So I think you should really have the answers to those like down. The second thing I really, really want to stress is just like I think Hanine said, like keep your know your experiences and what you've done, know the in and outs of those. I'm going to give an example which I think will kind of help like understand what like I kind of mean about that. For example, in my 4th year, I did a thesis. I did an undergraduate thesis. And so what I did is I wrote that I completed my thesis, like for myself in my Word document. I wrote that I completed my undergraduate thesis. And then what are the things I gained from that thesis? 1, I became better at public speaking. I used to suck at it. I hated it, would get stressed, anxiety, but I got better. Why? Because I had to perform, like I had to present at 2 different conferences for my undergrad. And so, you kind of get used to it. So public speaking is something I gained through my thesis. I also learned teamwork. I had to work in a really big team. I had to write a paper with a big team. We went through, an editing process, and everybody else had to give me input, criticism, things like that. You kind of learn how to work with them. And then also problem solving skills. My data got deleted halfway through my research and I had to start all over with half the time. Like it's disgusting and it's terrible and it's like you panic, but you know, that's when you learn. So you kind of write these, I wrote these are the main 3 things I learned from my thesis. So now I have this in my mind. And if a question asks about teamwork, I can automatically know like, oh, that my thesis, that's when I kind of like learned how to, you know, work in a team, things like that. And once you do this enough, you do this for your 7, 8, 9, 10 different experiences that you probably have, it becomes kind of automatic. You don't even have to think about it that much. It kind of just comes to your mind when the question is being asked. So I really want to stress that. And I think that really, really helped me in my interview. The third thing I really want to talk about is some deal breakers or some red flags that interviewers notice or they might not be a fan of, that like you might say, you might do. And these are things that when I was practicing with a student who was already in dental school, these are the things that he told me before I graduated. So I just wrote a list of it and I thought I'd share it. Obviously, number one, any sort of stigma, racism, sexism, anything like that, that's an automatic red flag, deal breaker. Second, talking about money and talking about expenses and things like that. Like if a question, I don't know, super random, but if a question's like, if a patient can't afford a dentist, what are you going to do? You're going to be like, all right, bye. Oops. Like, no, I mean, first of all, as a dentist, are you really going to do that? Like, as a healthcare professional, is that what you want to do? And also, they can see right through you. If you're lying, if you're, you know, pointing at a fact that, nope, you're here for the money, like, they can see right through that. That's an automatic red flag, deal breaker. Things like being too vain or too arrogant, like too like full of yourself, like, hey, yeah, I have a PhD, like I belong here, things like that. Not being empathetic. I think the example like Hanine mentioned was really good. If a person's upset and they start yelling and you immediately are like, all right, police, like I'm gonna call the police now. But it's like, where's your empathy? You don't know what they're going through. Think of alternative solutions. How can you help this person and how can you calm them down instead of, all right, calling the police? So lack of empathy is kind of like a red flag. And one more thing is like just shutting down. If you don't know the answer to something, just standing there and being like panicking and just not knowing. It's okay to take it's okay to take a couple of seconds to think and collect your thoughts. Like, that's good. Just being like, oh, that's interesting. And then just thinking to yourself, that's fine. But like just shutting down completely and not being able to think of anything or not being able to say anything and panicking, like that might come off as you just, you know, kind of not being comfortable to talk or shutting down under like in stressful situations. And then lack of commitment is something that is kind of a red flag as well. I know it sucks because like I was really scared they're going to think I don't have commitment because I transferred out of my program after first year of undergrad. Like I was like, oh my God, they're going to be like, you can't even choose an undergrad major. How are you here for like choosing a career? But if you have a good reason for, you know, changing, if you have a good reason for not committing to something, like that's okay. But don't show that like, oh, I'm here to test this out. Like med school didn't work out. So like, I'm here for fun. Like if you show any signs of that, they will catch it. And it is a red flag because being a dentist, like dentistry, it's a long path. And if you don't love it, if you don't really like what you're doing, you're not going to have fun. Like being in clinic, like you're like, if you don't love filling teeth right now, like this is not going to be a fun time for you. So they see that. And the fourth thing I really want to stress is at least at U of T, because that's the only place I interviewed. So at least at U of T, I'm pretty sure other places are like this too, but have a conversation with them. They're not, just like everybody else said, they're not here to trick you, honestly. Like some of the questions I practiced for this interview were insane. Like how would you see the world if it was only in black and white? Like what? Like no. It's just questions that I thought they're like trying to like they're trying to get me. Like they're trying to see if I can figure this out. It's really not like that. They just really don't know you. They're trying to see if you're a good fit for this school. They're trying to see if this school is a good fit for you. So, and then like I said, like if they run out of things to talk about, at least in my experience, they literally said another random question. They just wanted to see how I was or how I'm doing. Like, I know it's scary and I know you're probably going to freak out, but like once you come into like the school, like at least at U of T again, I'm sorry, I only know this example because this is all I know, but at least like when you come in, you'll see all of us there, like you'll see all the students there, and it's pretty chill environment, but you just have to practice, be yourself, have a conversation, and like you'll do fine.
Thank you so much, everybody. That was honestly amazing advice. I really, really, really enjoyed hearing from each of you. You each had such unique perspectives to things. Yeah, it was all super cohesive. Definitely, if anybody else has any questions, drop it in the chat right now. I did want to ask Hanieh a follow-up question. What was like necessarily something that you would say was like a unique experience for like MMI interviews?
I think maybe, I mean, I don't know. If it's a panel interview, like you said, they don't give you like time. They're just like, they just ask you a question. Yeah. So for MMI, it's like, okay, you have 7 minutes. Like answer. Like you talk for 7 minutes. And then you know that like you have to like talk for 4 and then allow them time to follow up. So it's like they'll literally cut you off mid-conversation sometimes. And then like that creates a little bit of a stress. And also like just giving like that 2 minutes outside the door when you're standing and you're like, oh crap, like I can't think of anything. Like, what am I gonna do? That's just kind of, it's kind of stressful in that sense. I think the worst part about MI is just sitting there and being like, all right, I have nothing else to say, and we're sitting here for another 2 minutes.
Well, what do you do to calm yourself down in that situation?
Honestly, this is why I'm saying it's literally like a conversation, because when I ran out, I think someone just asked a question, something like that, right? No, they didn't. Oops. So like, sorry, what was your question? Oh, what did you do to calm yourself down?
Yes.
Yeah, so like honestly, that's what I'm saying. It's like a conversation, because I stopped at 5 minutes. They asked a follow-up question. I answered it in 30 seconds, and we had a minute and a half left. So I'm like, did you want me to? And honestly, this is another thing. If you don't have anything to say, don't keep trying to think of something to say, because like what if you mess up? Like what if you say something random? Just don't keep trying to like think of different things. If you're done about a topic, you're done. Like, so I stopped and I was like, yeah, so that's my opinion. And then he's like, oh great, so why do you want to do dental school? So he just switched the conversation, acted like nothing happened. So that's why I'm saying it's very it's casual. It's not like that crazy structure, stressed out at the moment. So just know that they're not out to get you. I think that's how I used to calm myself down. They're not out to get me.
That's really great. Thank you. I'm gonna start reading aloud people's questions from the chat, or I'll read through these ones, and then after I ask TD's question, people can start unmuting just so I can like go in order of people's questions. Let's start with Salma's question. She says thank you to everybody, but she has a question for those who received interviews to several schools but only get accepted to a few. What do you think made the difference in your interview between where you got accepted and where you weren't accepted? I think Hanieh said she only interviewed at U of T. Hanine, I'm not sure about you, but I know Dursa said she interviewed at a lot of places.
Yeah, so that's a good question. But to be honest, like I'm not sure, because what was really important to me was that I stayed true to myself and like during my interviews. So I did the best that I could during my interviews. I prepared for the questions. I had all my experiences ready to go. Maybe because, like for example, for American schools, maybe like the places that I didn't get accepted, maybe that was more logistic wise. They didn't accept that many international students, or maybe the same for different schools in Canada that are like more like Alberta or Manitoba. But I think maybe in terms like difference in my interview, there were certain interviews that you might think after you were like, oh, like, why did I answer it like that? Like, oh, I could have said a million different things. But I really don't think that's something that you should get tripped up on right now or at this moment or even after. Just try your best, do the best that you can, prepare for your interviews as best as you can, and don't really think about the difference in your interview between like where you got accepted and where you didn't get accepted. I never really thought of it like that. I just know that I did the best that I could and I answered as best as I could. Again, I think that maybe it could have been logistic, or maybe, there were certain questions that maybe I necessarily couldn't relate to, perhaps. For example, for American schools, like, I've only been to America for trips, I don't know like what it's like to live there, or like certain things like that. So I think maybe for me personally, it was more of like the logistics scenario. But yeah, but I don't think you should think about it like, oh, I did my interview like this, so I'm definitely not going to get accepted, or I did my interview like this, like I'm definitely going to get accepted. Like, you really never know. Just prepare as best as you can, do the best that you can, stay true to yourself, be yourself, and you will be more than fine.
Yeah, and I didn't go to my interview at Western, so I don't really know. Because Western's interviews were in like March, and like by then U of T had sent me my acceptance. So I'm like, all right, I'm not going through this again. Yeah, so can't really help there.
Hanine, yeah, we'll let you take over the stage for this one.
Yeah, the same thing happened with me. Like my Western interview was after I was already accepted to U of T. So I only went because I felt bad. Like I felt I already said yes, so I'm gonna go. And I hated the interview, I'm not gonna lie, because I ultimately was accepted to the school, but they waitlisted me. So I'm a little mad about that, but it's fine. Anyway, the interview had at least 3 panelists. They asked like 8 questions. So it was just boom, boom, boom. Like there was no opportunity to kind of like, I just found it hard to start having a conversation with them, or to like, I just didn't feel like I was like, they were trying to be very professional, which I felt was different than my U of T interview one. Like I can only compare the two. But if I had only had the Western interview, I would just think it's like any other interview. They're just trying to get to know me. That questions were very similar to U of T's questions. They're very similar to the questions I practiced. There were some questions about COVID, some questions about social media here, stuff like that. They like the questions were like the way I practice for U of T is almost the same way I would practice for Western, given that they were both panel interviews. The only difference was that I needed to have like the stamina to answer more questions with the same quality, because there's like 8 questions. Aside from that, I like the interviewers, they didn't give me much to like grasp on to like have a conversation, but it was okay. I tried my best.
That's perfect. Thank you. I am skipping a few questions that were already answered. So if you feel like you wanted to hear more about it, just re-ask it. I will like reiterate it. Tara is asking, at U of T, what happens after you're brought into the building? Is there a place to put your coat and phone? And also sub question, what is unique about the U of T dental program?
I think you guys were online for your interview, right? Yeah, so since this year it's in person, yes, there is somewhere to put your coat. So you come in, you're basically greeted by a bunch of kids in ugly green scrubs. And then we take you to our cafeteria. At least this is what we did. I'm pretty sure it's still the same, but like there might be just a couple differences. But you're taken to the cafeteria by students, like upper years. And then you kind of sit there, you chill there with them, talk to them. If you want to be alone and just prepare for your stuff, obviously you can go ahead. But then most people are just chilling in the cafeteria together, and you can just put your coat and your bags there. The students are there the whole time. And then you basically go up when it's your interview time. You see groups of students. We did that. You see groups of students just going up together. You see another group who just did their interview coming out. You do your personal interview. And then we went and we did a little tour around the clinics. We spoke with the dean. And then we had like a Q&A session. It was a very informal session with the dean and the other students, like the upper years, where we just asked to see, hey, do you like it here? What are you guys doing? What's it like? Yeah, honestly, when you come into the U of T dentistry building, I think the first years, I think Hanine and Dursa can relate. It's kind of underwhelming. It's not a pretty building.
For sure,
You're
yeah.
gonna be like, oh, sorry.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, oh God, like why did I do this? But you get used to it. It kind of grows on you. But yeah,
It's the aesthetic. It's the aesthetic.
yes. But there's another, we have a second, let me defend it. We have
Yeah.
another clinic on Bay Street now. That's super pretty and modern. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And they were asking what's making like U of T unique though, like in terms of, I guess, like its dental program and stuff. Maybe Dursa, you can attest to this because you researched a ton of schools. But just in general, like also Hanieh, what's like your favorite thing about U of T that you think either honed like your decision making of going to the school, or you really loved as like you experienced the school?
Yeah, for sure. So, for me, like I did my undergrad in London, and although I love Western, I'm a Toronto girly. I'm a city girly. So, Toronto was my number one choice, always just mainly because of the location and being close to family, but also, U of T, what I really like about it, currently in first year is that like they have an equal emphasis, I think, on both like lecture and like didactic content. So like things that you learn in lecture, like textbook based content, which like kind of helps build your foundation of like, okay, why am I doing this? Oh, I remember I learned this in lecture like 2 days ago. Like it helps build your foundation so that when you go into lab or clinic, you really have a good idea of like what's going on, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. So I really like that they have an equal emphasis on both aspects of dentistry, both like the lecture based and the hands-on clinical based. Whereas I know for like some schools, like in America or other schools in Canada as well, they mainly may focus on one thing compared to the other. So for example, they may like from first year, like you're working in clinics and you're like doing things like off the bat without really understanding why you're doing it and having that fundamental knowledge. So that's personally what I really like about U of T so far. And hopefully as the years go on, there will definitely be more things. But that's what I personally like about it so far.
Honestly, I agree. That's very true. But I also like, I don't know, researching the school other than, living in Toronto, which was my goal. I think one thing that I really liked about, the dental program here is the focus it has on, helping people or like serving those who might not have as much like a highest income or insurance or anything like that. Our clinic is very affordable, and it really caters towards that population. So I really like that, and it's what we're doing now, and I think that was one of my major reasons for coming here.
I second both of their answers.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question, which is actually a question I had too. So if the interviewers asked if you had any questions at the end, like, is that something that occurred? If so, what kind of things did you guys ask them? Definitely take a second to think. It was last year
So
or more so for
they
Hanieh.
definitely do ask. They just, our U of T at least, they definitely asked. I said this in the chat, but I said no, I don't have questions, and I regret that. I was like crying about it for a week, but it's all good. It turned out okay. I wish I asked, like, tell me what you like. Why are you like affiliated with U of T? Like, tell me more about it, like from an insider's perspective. That would have been good. Or like, what's something about dentistry that you wish people knew more, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. I would 100% agree with that. I don't remember if we got asked that or not. We probably did. But that is a really great answer. Like, or honestly, taking the time to like actually like learn something about the school. Like they want to see that you're like interested in the school as well. Like just taking the time to like be like just literally anything, but like it just shows that you're interested in keeping the conversation going, or like I think it's a great idea. Being like, so what's your favorite part? Or do you like teacher? Like, is there any, do you teacher? But like I meant like, are you a professor like of any specific course? Or like anything like that, or just yeah, I think that's a really great idea. Keep it going.
Yeah, for me, they definitely did ask me as well. And, I kind of I had this approach where I was like, I'm just genuinely curious about something, so I'm gonna ask it. So, for example, like my go-to was probably like, do you have any advice for someone who's in my shoes right now, as like a professional in this field who's probably been practicing for like 15-20 years? Do you have any advice for someone who's just getting started? So things that you're genuinely curious about and that you're really interested in, either about the school, the profession, wanting to clarify certain things about the school. I think it's good to ask, and definitely if that opportunity does come, definitely take it. And it shows a lot about your character, I think, as well.
Can I just add something really quickly? Something that Hanieh reminded me of when she was discussing the red flags. Something that you should really know is what the obligations of a dentist is. For example, you could get a question like, what if you have a patient that comes in and they have like hepatitis B? Like, are you going to treat them? You might be thinking you're going to make sure that everybody feels safe, blah, blah, blah. But really, what is your job? Your job is, you take an oath as a dentist the same way that physicians do, and you're actually obligated to treat people regardless of their status, because most of the time you don't even know. Something that we learn is that you should assume that every patient has some type of transmittable disease, and you should take the same precautions for every single person that walks through your door. So that's just something you should be mindful of, because it's important to answer a lot of these type of questions. You need to know what dentists not just want to do for people, but what they're actually obligated to do regardless of how we feel.
I think the RCDSO, I might be wrong, but I think the RCDSO, which is the Royal College for Dentists of Ontario, I think it has on their website like things that they're your responsibility, like you need to know. And those are actually questions for like scenario questions. Like, you have a patient, they have like some infectious disease, like what are you going to do? Are you going to treat them or not? And then you need to like prepare an answer. So that's a very good point.
Do you guys think that if it's like a panel interview that the student is going to, that there's a point in practicing any situational or behavioral questions, or should they just keep it to be like the common traditional questions asked?
No, definitely practice those questions. They can easily ask you any type of question in the panels, and they did ask those questions actually.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely practice them.
Very good. Next question is, what is your advice for when you're asked, tell me about a time when question, but you can't think of an applicable scenario? Should you make something up or take the approach to say, I can't think of anything at the moment, but here's how I would approach a similar scenario? I feel like you shouldn't say that I can't think of anything at the moment. That's my tip.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that might not be the best option. I'm going to give this to Dursa and Hanine only because in a panel interview, I don't know what I would do right now. In an MMI, you have 2 minutes to think about it before going in, so you'll scramble something up, but I don't know what it works like in a panel.
Dursa, do you want to go or should I just jump in?
Sure, I'll go. I definitely do think that's a tricky scenario. But, I guess there's pros and cons to like that approach. Like I can't think of anything, but I think it does show that like you are someone who, you've understood the question, like you know what they're asking you. You may not necessarily have like a specific example for that, but you have an example for this. So I guess, but like the con is then they're going to be like, oh yeah, but you didn't answer my question. So I guess there's like a pros and cons approach to this kind of scenario. I definitely don't think make anything up because then they're going to be like, something's not adding up. So the I can't think of like like providing another scenario is a good option, but I think that's just where like being prepared comes in, and just even if it's like the smallest example, if you can answer that question, you've answered it, you've showed an example. So don't make anything up, but try to really be prepared and think of your experiences in and out, have them all ready. And yeah, but that is a pretty difficult situation for sure.
Yeah, I agree with Dursa. You want to answer the question regardless, but just because we are a couple weeks before the interview, I'm just gonna like put it out there. How confident you are during your interview is all in the preparation now, because you really have to like put in your mind and internalize that every question is going to be answerable. Like in every single question, you have a situation for, you just have to search for it a little bit. Like if you go in with that mindset, getting stuck is just a little bit less likely because like I'm sure there's going to be a question that's almost every single question kind of stumped me, but taking that second to think and like having kind of like a map, like, okay, they just asked me a question about when my values were tested. I have no idea, but I know that my values are related to professionalism. I know professionalism is related to ethics. I know ethics. Oh, I have tons of examples for ethics. You know what I mean? And like that's the type of thought process you need to have to answer any type of question. I think it's better to answer, even if it's not 100%, than to show that you might not have an example, because that shows like you don't have experiences as an individual, and we all know you do. So you have to just kind of leverage them.
Yeah, definitely back when you were saying like think about your experiences and how each of them could represent like especially qualities of that school and for yourself. And then kind of like I would say try to draw on that. Especially if you're blanking at any point, like you don't want to necessarily be like, oh, sorry, can't let you know, I don't recall, but just kind of leeway the question into that. It's really great advice. What is one thing that you guys wish you had known before your interviews? And I would even sub follow that and be like, what's something post interview that you would have told your pre-interview self?
I wish they knew that they were going to be people, like this nice people with lives. I should have asked them about their lives, but it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Just go in with a positive mindset, have fun with it. You're meeting new people. This is a huge chapter, a huge experience. So just have fun with it and, yeah, just have fun with it.
I think I really wish I knew that if I keep stressing more, I'm not gonna let them really know who I am, which isn't usually like a super stressed person. But if I stress, I can't talk, and I don't want that. I don't want them to see me as that. And I think it's a reminder to like breathe in, breathe out, everything's gonna be fine. And that if you mess one part up, if you mess one thing up, that's okay. It's not the end. Like they aren't like, oh, oops, check, like they messed up, oopsies. No, they're really not like that. It's okay if you don't think immediately and you don't know something immediately. Just it's fine.
That's so true. Like it's not over until it's over. Like until the very last second, put your best foot forward. And by the way, guys, if they ask you, they're going to ask you like, how are you in the beginning? If they ask you like, how are you? Don't say, I'm nervous. Just say like, I'm excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this. Like, just so positive energy. They don't need to know what you've been going through.
Definitely smile. Like it's a dental school interview. They want to see you just smiling and being happy. Okay. Next question is specifically for Hanieh. Do you know exactly what is going to happen this year with the interview and the faculty tour at U of T, or what the schedule would be like?
That is such a good question, and I really wish I had asked someone today because I had the opportunity to. But no, I don't know. However, message me on Instagram. I'm sorry, I can't see where this question is. Message me on Instagram, and I will ask for you tomorrow. And
drop their
let
Instagram.
Shamim know. Yeah, I can even let Shamim know, and then she can let you guys know. I'm pretty sure they're gonna tell you guys, but if they don't.
We'll see if Hanieh has the time. Maybe she can make a story and I'll repost the story for you.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I'll drop their Instagrams down below and then I'll ask the next question. So I'll just reiterate because it was in the chat in case for anyone on YouTube. Hanine recommends that your responses be 2 to 3 minutes. What does Hanieh or Dursa recommend?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like for example, for really common questions like tell me about yourself, I made sure to practice for 2 minutes. Like I made sure that I wrapped it up by 2 minutes or 2 minutes or like 15 seconds or whatever. But there are certain questions that you really gotta talk through it and for your thought process, but to also kind of show the people that are interviewing you like certain things that you want to talk about. So don't really like focus on, oh my God, it's like 3 minutes, I need to wrap up, because that's going to just rush you. Again, have those points that you really want to say beforehand and make sure you're concise and you're not just talking on for like 5, 6, 7 minutes. So be concise, but if you need more time, that's okay.
Thank you. Let me ask the next question. Guys, there's a lot of questions here. I will start wrapping this up in the next 6 minutes, I would say, just because we don't want to go super overtime. It is pretty late as well. Would you recommend talking about experiences in dentistry such as shadowing or ECs when answering the question of tell me about yourself? Or should it simply be about your education, current hobbies, or like your job or something like that?
Like, I mean, sure, you can include it. I don't think it's like, nope, you can't talk about it. But I think when it says tell me about yourself, they want more than that. Like you can include, yeah, you shadowed dentistry, but that's not all about you. Like that's not everything about you. Like you have so much more going on in your life. So don't think that's the main thing you need to express. It could be, yeah, I think shadowing is fun, and yeah, so I did it, but it doesn't have to be like a major point.
Yeah, by the way, regarding shadowing, you should always want to show a demonstrated interest in dentistry. It doesn't have to be shadowing. I personally did zero shadowing. I don't think it's necessary for an application, but I do think it's important just so you know what dentistry is about. I wish I did it because nobody told me about the back pain, and I kind of wish I knew about that earlier.
Yeah, I didn't have any shadowing experience either, and it's definitely not necessary. But yeah, it is a very good way to kind of figure out, hey, is this even for me? But they don't usually ask about that. I mean, at least in my opinion.
Dursa, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Nope, everybody covered it.
Perfect. How did you guys dress for your interviews?
Dursa and mine were online, so I only wore decent clothes, like top half, but pretty much like I wore business casual. I had a blazer on. I think I had a necklace on. I don't remember if I had any jewelry, but I had like light makeup on, like my favorite hijab that makes me look like a nice person, like whatever like brings out the like rosy cheeks, that's it. And literally just that. Like I didn't overthink it too much. I didn't wear a sweater or anything like that. I just like looked put together. That's all.
Yeah, same here. Just business casual, something you're like, especially now since they're like in person, something that you feel comfortable in is also really important too. So yeah.
Yeah, me too. I wore a black blazer, black dress pants. I didn't wear heels. Kind of wish I did though, because it makes me more confident. But I mean, at the same time, I didn't want to like risk tripping or something. But I wore I think it was a very light purple shirt under my blazer. But there were people who wore like, most people came business casual, blazers and pants and stuff, but there were different colors of blazers, and I wish I did something like different. One of our kids had like a beautiful like emerald green, and it was so different, and not emerald, kind of like darker, but like an olive emerald type, but it was so pretty. But yeah, like people wore that stuff, but definitely keep it business casual. I did minimal makeup. I don't know if it's significant to do makeup or not. I don't really know. But I just felt like I want to keep it a little more low key. And yeah, and I had just stud earrings, and that's it.
I think Dursa answered. Yes. Okay. Perfect. And let's go on to the next question. This can just be a simple one word. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your dental school experience? You can just shout and just say what it is.
I think for my first year was a 5. Second year was a 6. And a third year is definitely an 8.5.
Nice.
It gets better.
It's a strong
In
6.5 average.
some ways, it gets better. I'm sorry. In some ways, it gets better.
Academically, 6 out of 10. Socially, 9. So what is that round to? 7.5? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
But also keep in mind, sorry, I had COVID during my year, so we didn't have a social life. We were all depressed. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
So before your interview, Hanieh, it was pre-pandemic?
no, I was right at the beginning. I was February 2020. So I was right before it hit. So we were all living in La La Land, and then a month after it was shut down.
So that would answer someone else's question about masking. So you had no masks.
No, we didn't.
Okay. Very good. Our next question.
By the way, for masks, they would tell you if you need masks in the email. And if not, have a mask ready and go and put on there.
Yeah, I highly doubt they would require you to have it right now, because right now the faculty we're not required to wear it. I mean, sorry, at U of T. I keep doing this. I keep thinking this is like a U of T prep thing, but yeah. So like at U of T we don't wear it. So in next week, if you're coming, like you don't have to, but just if they want you to do it, we have masks on the faculty, so they'll give you.
A really good question that was asked is, since there are only 3 questions for the panel, or like just a few, like not that many, should they add a personal example to all of the answers?
I think it's always like a good idea to draw from your experiences to show you can relate. You know, like if it's a question that isn't directly asking for your experience, then it's not a bad idea to be like, I actually like have experiences with this when I was doing XYZ. And not like you don't have to go in depth or anything, but just like that's just one more opportunity to talk about something from your CV.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely don't think it hurts you in any way. It just shows even more of your character, which is ultimately what they want to see.
Okay, great. One question that was already answered, but I'll reiterate it, is that the interview panel, you could expect higher year students, professors, practicing dentists, or all of the above. And Hanine's answer was that it could be all of the above, and it could even be community members, but usually there's a mix, right? Okay, Very good. And then, do you guys have any specific reason as to, if you were interested in medicine as well, why you chose dentistry over medicine, or if there was another healthcare field that you were really interested in, and why dentistry over that one?
For me, like the biggest reason like that I feel so set on dentistry is because there's a hands-on component. For medical school, the parts that I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really enjoy studying. Like those parts of dentistry aren't my favorite at all. Like I enjoy going to labs. I enjoy learning like new hands-on skills. I think med school, the majority of it is didactic, which is like in lecture stuff. So that would be really difficult to get through, to be completely honest. So that's the biggest thing for me when I'm comparing the two. And the way I look at it is I really like the idea of being able to have like a tangible effect on like my family and friends, like they come into a dental clinic and I can do something that I can literally fix something very quickly. And I've like pretty much anybody who's like applying to dentistry or medicine knows the concept of delayed gratification. So with something like dentistry, it's a little bit less delayed when you're doing something, doing a cavity prep or something. They can leave. There's a good chance that they can leave your dental clinic fixing a problem immediately. With a physician, you're kind of in the slums for so long. You can't fix something, which is hard to deal with, honestly. Like there's that huge burden on you that people are coming to you for advice and help, and all you can do sometimes is just give a prescription. Not saying that dentistry isn't like that sometimes, but there's more tangible solutions.
For sure. I mean, I never applied to med. I never wanted to do med, but like I did want to, I was in kin. So like one of my questions was always like, okay, so like you did kin, are you like switching career paths, or like why not, or why are you now doing dentistry? And it's like the hands-on 100% for sure. Also, I think like it's just always stimulating. I think it's always like in medicine and or in other fields, like unless you're doing surgery, it's not hands-on. And I feel like for me personally, I would get bored. Like I would get bored if I was just thinking about solutions all day. Here, when you're in dentistry, you treatment plan. You do, hey, here's what I'm going to do, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then you kind of put it into action. You put it into a plan. You have an object, you see it, you pour up the models, and you can kind of see the teeth. And it's just so satisfying. So I kind of like that. That kind of excites me. So that's basically how these aren't like interview things, by the way. Like I don't think you can like say this in an interview. These are just like for your own kind of like, not like for your own thought process. But yeah, that's basically how I just knew I wanted to do it.
Yeah, same here. As previously mentioned, like hands-on is so important, it's so satisfying. Every day it's like something new, and it's like a little puzzle every day. Okay, like what am I going to be doing today? What are my tools? Like all these things I think is really important. And I truly enjoy. And I had this dilemma of medicine versus dent in second year. And although not essential, I think that's where shadowing really helped me. And I went and shadowed my family dentist, and I kind of just saw the dynamic of like what he has to do on a day-to-day, who he talks to, who he communicates with, the things that he has to go through. And I found that those things align more with my character compared to med. And yeah, so I think like hands-on, being able to like talk to everyone every day, work in a team. Like a lot of times you're working in a team, and doing things like Hanine said, doing things and then seeing the end result like immediately, which I think is really satisfying.
Also, like keep in mind that when you're a dentist, especially if you have your own clinic, not only are you a healthcare professional, but you're also running a business. So if your goal isn't, unless your goal isn't to have your own practice and it's to be an associate, that's a different story. But if your goal is to have your own practice and grow in that sense as well, which is a like a really valid path. Some people want to, mostly do the business aspect of it, and that's great. But unless you want to kind of like be an associate and you don't want to have your own career path, like a career path, you want to have your own like clinic, then like you need to also like kind of that business aspect a little bit as well, which I don't think is a necessity in medicine or, you know, other professionals.
Last two questions. Do you think it would be good to talk about a possible humanitarian trip that the student went on for an answer? I guess like to show like the qualities and stuff. Would it be nice to talk about that experience, or should you try to showcase your personal experience examples through more like an everyday lens?
I think you can definitely do it. Like you can definitely talk about your experience. Why not mention it? Mention what you did and why you did it and how it helped you. And but I don't think it's like necessary for you to, I don't think it's like you have to have had an experience like that for your like interview. I think it's just nice to mention the things you did, but it's not a necessity to do it. If you think it's a valid part, if it's a big part of, you know, who you are now and how you grew, then for sure it's an experience. Why not? At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. If it's something important to you, you can obviously include it. Only thing I'm gonna like, I personally want to do these type of trips, and I think that they're so awesome. The only thing, just to play devil's advocate, also be prepared to answer a question regarding like what you think about volunteerism, because that is also a concept. You know, the idea of going to another region to do work, but also you're on vacation type of thing. That's also a very valid type of question you can get from an interviewer. So just be prepared to answer that type of question.
Yeah, just agreeing with both. I also think it's important, like, don't just use that example to kind of answer all questions. Make sure you have like a diverse pool of the opportunities that, you know, have helped shape you. That's definitely one, and you can definitely use that, but don't just use that.
Thank you so much. And last but very much not the least, what would you improve about the U of T dental program?
More clinical hours, like, come on. That's probably the biggest thing. That's probably the biggest difference between U of T and Western that I hear is the clinical hours at U of T is a little bit less. I don't go to both schools, so it's hard for me to know. It's just the things I've heard. So there's no harm in more clinical hours, kind of like being in the mouth, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think just maybe like having the opportunity to have extra practice sessions, maybe that's a thing in like upper years, but like right now in like resto lab, I'm always like, oh, I don't know how to do a rubber dam. Guess I won't know for another like 4 months, you know, but it like having that opportunity to practice it often, I think would have definitely been very helpful.
Yeah, clinical hours do increase. I mean, obviously, I still can't do a rubber dam, so it's okay. It literally still takes me like a couple tries. But I think like increased communication between faculty and students would be something that I would prefer to improve. But I think like in some cases, like in some instances, the faculty is pretty good at listening to what we want. And so we're pretty good at like having our voice heard in some instances, which I think is pretty nice. But the clinical hours, I can say for sure, especially when like you get into like second year, it starts getting a little like hectic. And you definitely do want extra practice, and like they do kind of give you we have something called evening practice. So basically we mostly we all have class until 5ish, I think. Like, do you guys have class till 5?
Yeah.
Like something around, and then we have evening practice, which is like 6 to 8, 6 to 9. But it's obviously not all the time. So I do kind of see how in like first and second year you'd want to like have that more often. But it does get more, and you will get exposed to things as you kind of move on.
Mhm. Also, I wouldn't mind like removing first semester of gross anatomy. That was useless. A lot of courses
Yeah.
I feel like they didn't need to be there, but it's all good.
Yeah, no, it's very useless actually. I'm so sorry.
Did you know every bone of our legs? Because we need to work with that as dentists.
And then you also have a lab, more fun. And then
I
you have a
know.
lab section, which is like dissecting like
Yeah.
leg muscles, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
how?
We're
Med schools don't even have that
No,
sometimes.
literally, that poor cadaver.
Yeah,
Like we're using it's fine.
I
It's
know.
fine.
It feels wrong.
It does.
I guess it makes sense for like the dental schools that have the first year, like that's the same as like the med schools and stuff, like McGill. But it's
Mhm.
like if you're a faculty of dentistry, just make it specific.
Yeah, 100%. At least it's only a semester, and it gets it gets better. Oh, also one more thing I would really like to improve about the program is we repeat a lot of courses. Like we have preventive dentistry in first year, and then in second year, and then in third year, and then in
I
fourth
did not
year.
know that.
And it's all the same thing. It's all the same content. So that is something I'd really like to improve, but we can't. So it is what it is.
Honestly, you opened a can of worms. Like there's a lot.
No, yeah.
We've been waiting for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is my favorite question.
Been on my shoulder. Like
Okay, well, thank you so much for all your guys' input. I can't send it to the dean, but maybe you guys can. I wanted to give a huge appreciation and thank you to Hanine, Hanieh, and Dursa. You guys not only spent your time here, but hopefully so many pre-dental students now have a lot more intel on this, like if you know type of process. Hopefully you guys got the opportunity to ask your questions, but make sure to reach out to them on Instagram. They are tagged in our post. So if you were to go to our Instagram page on bright_future_dentist, you can definitely check out their pages for more information over there. This is recorded onto our YouTube channel as well, so you can always listen back and hear the advice over again if you need to. Again, thank you so much. You really did spend your evening with us, and with your busy lives and schedules, I know that means a lot to us. So this is just a huge appreciation from the Bright Future Dentist team.
Of course. Good luck, everybody.
good luck.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to end the Zoom meeting. I'll be here if anybody has any other questions or wanted to stick around and say anything else. But other than that, everybody is free to go. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Take care. Good night. That was great. Thank you, guys.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for
You guys
having me.
really like honed in like on your answers. It was really great, like the way you guys presented it. I enjoyed it.
I still have my like notes from when I was preparing, so I was actually reading off that.
That is so smart, actually.
I don't know why I decided it's actually a sticky on my laptop. It's on my main like desktop. I don't know why. It's been 3 years. I did this.
Wait, so it's just still there. Like you
it's
just
still on my desktop, literally.
Why?
It's MMI questions, situation question, like it's everything just listed. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea to keep it, but I mean it came in handy. So
I think that was just manifestation for you to do this event.
yeah, I was like, I need to be doing this forever. And then they went ahead and changed the type of interview. So
No, literally. But to be honest, like it's still good, like having that MMI experience, because like people that are gonna do U of T, they're gonna do like probably US and like other schools as well.
yeah, and is the US mostly MMI now?
Yeah, it's they've gone good at their interviews. Like
Really?
they've taken it to new levels. Like some of my interviews were literally an hour and a half long, like 2 hours.
Actually,
So, yeah, like group work, like literally like 5 stations, talk with like 12 other people. Like it was draining, but yeah, for sure. Like but it's also kind of strange how like different each school is in their interview. So like you've got to really like adapt. But sometimes you're like, yes, like classic questions, and you don't have to like do like MMIs and stuff. So yeah.
Did you guys have to do a personal statement, an essay?
Yeah, like everything pretty much.
Yeah, that was new in our year.
Really?
Yeah. So our year, they really were like,
your year was like killing. I'm sorry.
Before us, it was literally just GPA, DAT, and interview. And then we came in with like a whole personal statement. We had a greatest accomplishment essay. Did you guys have that?
Right.
That's
Yes.
Yeah,
really
a
good.
Casper. And
Yeah.
then they got
That's
fancy on
great.
us.
I think people
Wow.
complained because they're like, U of T is way too like
Yeah.
GPA and score based. So then
Yeah.
they're like, okay, here, showcase yourself more.
I think so too. I don't even know if they ended up using that stuff though. Like,
Yeah.
did they? Like nobody tells us anything.
I like
So
to think that they did for like my friends that got in. I'm like, I really hope they read your personal statement because I know you cried while writing that.
I know.
Literally.
I worked on that for like a month.
Same.
Yeah.
I was
And I'm
using
like
words I've
and
never
I'm like
used
one of
before.
those people who like just needs to get something right. And so I just kept reading it and reading it and reading it. So wow,
It was an experience. It
it
really
was
was.
definitely an experience. But for interviews too, I prepped for a very long time. I don't know, Dorothy, did you? Like I really
Yeah,
in
like
my mind, I was like, I'm gonna do this as it's okay if I don't get in. I'm gonna do this as practice. Like
yeah,
it'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah, exactly. Same. Like I had like a wall with like stickies with like because it was like at some point it just became way too draining, and I was like, oh my God. Like obviously I'm very grateful, but
Yeah.
like at some point I was just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, it was an experience for sure.
So how long did you guys practice for, like all together?
The interview.
Yeah.
I would say like for me, like it was around like a week and a half for my interviews.
No, for me it was longer. For me it was longer because I just had anxiety.
Yeah. Like every person's different.
I think for me it was around 3 weeks, maybe pushing 4. Yeah, but